Welcome back. As you know, I have a slight bias towards more classical books at the expense of contemporary books. Don't ask me why. It's the way I like to roll. I just feel that there's a huge to-be-read list that spans all the way back to ancient history, and I just got to read as much as I can from that long list. So it's quite rare that I read books that have come out in the very recent past, and today is one of those exceptions, and I'm very happy today to share with you this book, Sally Rooney, Beautiful World, Where Are You?, which has just come out. Now, many of you are probably familiar with Sally Rooney. For those of you who aren't, she's a very young Irish author. She's written 2 novels so far, both of which I have read and reviewed in the past. Both phenomenal novels that I really enjoyed. One was Conversations with Friends, and the other was Normal People. And they were both incredible novels. I started with Conversations with Friends, and I was expecting to hate it. I was like, this is definitely not my cup of tea. I'm definitely not the target demographic for this. And it's going to be a bit of a bore. It's going to be all about millennials exchanging granola recipes or whatever. And I'm definitely not going to enjoy it. And lo and behold, how wrong I was. I absolutely loved it. And so I have a lot of respect for Sally Rooney and the work she's done. And the good news is that I absolutely loved this latest book, her 3rd novel, which has just come out. And it's one of those books that's so good that throughout the book, I kept turning the pages and thinking, oh my God, that bit's really clever. Oh, that thing's really intelligent. That's so well done. So there's a lot to talk about here, and I'm going to try and keep it as brief as possible. But I could probably talk about this book for 9 hours straight and still be enthusiastic about it. That's how good it is. So let's start with the title, which is quite mesmerizing in a way. Beautiful World, Where Are You? We're clearly in a search of some kind. There's a quest, a discovery for a beautiful world. And what the book purports to do, and actually delivers very well, is to try and discover what exactly is a beautiful world. Where is this mythical, magical place? And Sally Rooney absolutely answers that question absolutely perfectly. I don't want to give any spoilers as to the answer, but you have to read it to find out what it is. So what I loved about it, first of all, is of course the style of Sally Rooney. It's so simple. She's a writer who absolutely doesn't write to show off or doesn't write to be writerly. It's just the minimum amount of information that is needed to construct a coherent sentence. That doesn't mean that there isn't great detail in the little moments in life, when you're looking for something in your handbag or whatever. Not that I look inside my handbag, but there are so many little details that are so well presented, but in such concise language. There's absolutely no showing off. She just wants to tell you what is going on. And I really like this contrast between this very simple prose and this quite detailed approach to analyzing and looking at the moments in life. I'll come back to that level of detail later on in this review. Now, with regard to her wider work, I'd say this book is actually her most engaged politically, engaged spiritually, and engaged culturally. What do I mean by engaged? I feel this is a novel where she's really putting a lot of stakes on what it is to find this beautiful world, and what the engagement means to find and to search for and find this beautiful world. It's engaged, for example, very politically. Some of the characters have conversations around how the Soviet Union was a beautiful idea and a beautiful place, and so this refers to like the Marxist idea of a Marxist paradise. Now, of course, only younger millennials could imagine the Soviet Union as being an earthly paradise, a little bit misguided, but I'm going to ascribe that to the characters rather than the author. It's also the most spiritually engaged in a way, and that's another aspect of a beautiful world, a paradise of sorts, a paradise lost, a paradise regained. One of the characters is religious. There's a scene where that religious activity impacts on the relationship that this character has with another character, and it's very well done, and it's done not in a judgy way, in just a very clear way, as a path to some sort of paradise that might or might not be believed in. And then there's an engagement at a cultural level where one of the characters, who is a successful author who's made money, reflects upon the evolution, the negative evolution of the literary scene, of what authors are about these days, and they're just about interested in conferences and prizes and awards and making more advance on their next book and so on. And there's actually very little connection to real life. And this author in the book says how much she deplores this path, and wouldn't it be better if there was a path to more authentic writing, even if that means a more limited career. And that's what's really interesting here, in a sense, is that this character, the successful writer, I think could be seen as an avatar for Sally Rooney, the real author, a sort of mouthpiece to express maybe some sort of frustration at the great success that she's had, and she's had phenomenal success at a very young age, and that must have created, I would assume, I'm probably wrong, some immense pressures in her life. And so she expresses those, I think, through that character. Maybe I've got it totally wrong, who knows. But I thought it was interesting to maybe draw a parallel between, an obvious parallel, obviously, between that author and the author with a capital A of the book. I especially liked as well, there are so many things I especially liked in this book. I especially liked the framing of the book. There was a lot of correspondence between two of the main characters, a very epistolary relationship between the two, and that mode of communication was also a way of showcasing a quite contemporary approach. There's a lot of technology in the book, which was something that had been seen, I think, in conversation with friends, where they were sending each other texts and DMs and emails and so on. And it's a little bit the same here. There's a lot of social media involved, and it all feels very contemporary and young and quite cool. But the main anchor of the back and forth is emails between two of the main characters. And then there's real-time action, and then back to the emails and so on. But in that sense, that framing device of these emails also provides a certain tempo, a certain rhythm in the book, and it accelerates towards the end in a very clever way. And again, no spoilers, but it's very, very well done. There's also a great contrast between the scale of things that she looks at, and there's constant zooming in and zooming out, as if she were taking a lot of distance, looking at certain situations. So she'll open certain scenes talking about, a woman's waiting at a bar, and a man walks in, and there's a lot of distance with the characters. And at some points it even zooms out to almost galactic, cosmic levels of the stars, the universe, the Milky Way, and so on. But then it zooms back into very intimate, very precise, very almost claustrophobic scenes where you're really in the thick of the action with the characters, in the detail of their lives. It's really, really cool, this sort of constant shift in perspective in a cool way. Now, finally, another thing that I really loved were the characters. Now, I'm sure there's going to be a lot of people saying, well, some of these characters were really acting in terrible ways at some points, or some of the characters were maybe a little inconsistent. And actually, I sort of loved that inconsistency in a way. There was some inconsistency. There was some of that that, at some points, some of the characters, and there's one specific character, I couldn't make up my mind about this person, and because it shifts back and forth between just a not very reliable person to somebody who's actually very empathetic, and that could have been applied to a lot of the characters in the book, and I thought that was pretty great. I think all of us have days where we are the best versions of ourselves, and there are days where we are assholes, and if you ask two very different people to describe us, they probably have two very different answers. And so I think it's okay to have these sort of swings in personalities and characters. Sometimes their qualities are at the front, and sometimes their worst vices are at the front, and I think that's okay. It's really interesting that there's just the right amount of oscillation between the characters' personalities, rather than just these massive swings that would really make no sense. So, above all, what I loved about this book is, it's a very basic thing about books, about novels, is I actually wanted to see where this was going. I was invested enough in the lives of the characters, in their feelings, in hoping that they would sort things out, or maybe even secretly hoping that they wouldn't sort things out, and maybe some great tragedy would come out of it, and would provoke some thought with regard to those sort of relationships. It's a commentary on, ultimately, friendship and love. Relationships are difficult, friendships are difficult, and maybe without giving too much away, that's where the beautiful world is. It's in the form of those friendships, of those relationships that swing and go back and forth between tension and love and ease and whatever, and that's where this zig and the zag of life, and how we feel about all these people around us, our nearest and dearest, that's where lives get interesting, and that's where fiction gets interesting, that we constantly want to find out, what is going to happen here. And I think Sally Rooney delivers an absolutely amazing book here. Honestly, so far, I think it's one of my favorite, if not my favorite books of the year, and I'm absolutely delighted to see that literature, contemporary modern literature, has such a phenomenal representative in the form of Sally Rooney. What a phenomenal book, and I really, really strongly recommend this one, as well as her previous two books. I just think they're absolutely fantastic fiction.